Knights and samurai are two legendary warriors of the medieval world. Surrounded by myths, people have debated for centuries. Who was stronger? Whose tactics were more effective? And whose weapons were deadlier? In this video, we will explore how they trained, what they believed in, what weapons they used, and who would win in battle. 1. Origins and warrior culture. Knights emerged in Europe during the Middle Ages, around the 8th to 9th centuries. Their foundation was the feudal system. A knight received land from a lord in exchange for military service. They followed a code of honor, chivalry, which demanded courage, loyalty, and the protection of the weak. Samurai, on the other hand, appeared in Japan in the 10th century. Their lives were guided by the philosophy of Bushido, the way of the warrior, which emphasized absolute loyalty, discipline, and a fearless acceptance of death. Samurai were not just warriors, but also intellectuals who studied poetry, calligraphy, and Zen philosophy. Despite their different cultures, both knights and samurai were the elite warriors of their societies. 2. Training and preparation. From childhood, future knights trained in warfare. At 7, they were sent to another knight for training, where they learned horseback riding, sword fighting, and archery. At 14, they became squires, and at 21, they were knighted. Samurai also began training at an early age. They practiced with the katana, bow, yumi, spear, naginata, and studied battlefield tactics. Their training focused on speed, discipline, and emotional control. While knights relied on strength and heavy armor, samurai focused on agility and precision. 3. Armor and protection. Knights wore heavy plate armor that could withstand sword strikes and arrows. Their primary defense was the cuirass, metal breastplate, along with a helmet, gauntlets, and greaves. Samurai armor, known as yoroi and domaru, was lighter and more flexible. It consisted of plates laced together, allowing for greater mobility. Instead of heavy shields, samurai relied on agility and sword skills. 4. Weapons, sword versus sword. A knight's primary weapon was the long sword or arming sword. In close combat, they also carried a dagger, dirk. Additionally, they used maces, battle axes, and lances. Samurai were famous for their katanas, long curved swords that were razor sharp. The katana allowed for fast and lethal strikes. They also carried a wakizashi, a short sword used for finishing off opponents or committing seppuku. 5. Tactics and fighting style. Knights preferred close combat. Their strategy involved a powerful cavalry charge with lances, followed by intense sword fighting in hand-to-hand combat. They fought in tight formations, where armor and shields created an almost impenetrable wall. Samurai, in contrast, often engaged in one-on-one duels, showcasing their swordsmanship skills. They were more agile, using clever maneuvers and quick strikes. However, they could also fight in formation, using spears and bows for coordinated attacks. 6. Who would win in a duel? If a knight and a samurai faced each other in battle, the outcome would depend on various factors. In an open fight, a knight could endure longer due to his heavy armor. However, if a samurai found a weak spot, a precise katana strike could be deadly. On the other hand, a knight with a lance would have an advantage in reach. Ultimately, the result would depend not only on their weapons and armor, but also on the skill and experience of each warrior. Conclusion. Knights and samurai were legendary warriors, each representing the pinnacle of military skill in their respective cultures. Their philosophies, fighting styles, and weapons differed, but they shared a deep dedication to their duty and mastery of combat. So, who do you think would win in a fight? Let us know in the comments. Ancient siege engines were some of the most powerful weapons in the history of warfare. They were created to break through the toughest walls and fortifications that could stand in the way of an army. Rams, catapults, ballistae, and siege towers not only destroyed physical barriers, but also changed the strategy of war. Without these marvels of engineering, many sieges would have failed, and the course of history might have unfolded differently. In this video, we will take a detailed look at how siege engines worked, the different types that existed, and how they influenced the successes of great armies in ancient times. Rams. The ram is one of the oldest siege weapons. Its construction is simple but highly effective. A ram is a long wooden structure, reinforced with an iron head, which is used to smash gates or walls of a fortress. In ancient times, rams were used to both destroy walls and break through gates, as well as to cause fear among defenders with the sounds of impact. One of the earliest historical examples of using a ram is found in the Siege of Troy, as described in Homer's Iliad. The Greeks used massive rams to break down the city walls, which played a crucial role in the city's destruction. However, rams had their drawbacks. They were not as effective against thick stone walls. For that, more powerful siege machines were required. Catapults. Catapults are weapons used to hurl stones, firebombs, or other heavy projectiles at the enemy. Unlike rams, catapults did not aim to destroy walls directly, but instead to incapacitate defenders inside the fortress and create chaos within the fortified city. A catapult typically used mechanical tension to generate the necessary force to launch projectiles. In ancient Greece and Rome, catapults were widely used in sieges and battles. They were often used to weaken walls and create barriers for defenders. In Rome, catapults were adapted for various types of sieges, which allowed them to be extremely effective. Catapults could hurl stones or other projectiles over long distances and had multiple uses. For example, catapults were used to launch fireballs into cities, creating additional obstacles for the defenders. Siege towers. Siege towers were large wooden structures designed to carry soldiers to the walls of a fortress and allow them to scale defensive barriers. These towers were often equipped with ladders and provided protection from arrows and other projectiles used in defense. Siege towers were usually built to be taller than the walls of the fortress, enabling soldiers to attack from above. One of the most famous examples of using siege towers is the Siege of Alexandria in Egypt, where the Romans used such structures to capture the city. These towers were often protected from fire and arrows with leather or metal sheets, and sometimes covered with straw mats to reduce damage from flames. Siege towers played a vital role in siege tactics, allowing armies to assault walls and other fortifications from close range. Some towers were so tall that they provided panoramic views and became mobile bases for attacks. Ballistae. Ballistae, often referred to as ancient crossbows, were weapons designed to launch enormous arrows or bolts over great distances. Their design resembled massive crossbows and were used in sieges to pierce fortifications or kill defenders from afar. Ballistae differed from catapults in that their main ammunition was large arrows or bolts, which could penetrate even heavy armor. Due to their accuracy, ballistae were especially effective at targeting defenders on the walls, as well as at destroying fortified gates. One of the notable uses of ballistae in history was during the siege of Carthage in the Punic Wars, where the Romans employed them against the city's defenders. Unlike catapults, ballistae could deliver more precise hits at longer ranges, allowing attackers to minimize casualties. Ballistae became an important part of siege technology and remained in use for a long time due to their versatility and destructive power. The origin and rise of Sparta. Sparta was one of the most powerful city-states of ancient Greece. However, unlike Athens, which was famous for its democracy and culture, Sparta chose a completely different path, one of military discipline and rigorous training. The Spartans were descendants of the Dorians, one of the ancient Greek tribes that settled in the Peloponnesus around the 11th to 10th centuries BC. They conquered the local population and turned them into slaves known as helots. The entire Spartan economy was based on the exploitation of the helots, allowing Spartan citizens to dedicate themselves entirely to military affairs. Sparta was unique in its governmental system. Unlike other Greek city-states, Sparta had no walls. There was a belief that the best defense of the city was its warriors. Society was built on strict laws and complete submission to the state. At the head of Sparta were two kings, who also served as military commanders. However, real power belonged to the Council of Elders, the Gerousia, and the Popular Assembly. All important decisions were made collectively, with military strength always being the top priority. Spartans were raised from childhood in an atmosphere of discipline and strength. Their lives were governed by the strict laws of Lycurgus, the legendary lawgiver who, according to tradition, created the Spartan way of life. The core principles of Sparta were rigid hierarchy, self-sacrifice, and total submission to the interests of the polis. Thus, a society was born that for centuries inspired both fear and admiration among its enemies and allies. Agoj, the Spartan training system. One of the most unique and brutal training systems in history was the Spartan agoge. It was a strict program designed to transform boys into elite warriors. In Sparta, it was believed that the protection of the polis required not just soldiers, but true fighters hardened from childhood. When a boy turned 7, he was taken from his family and sent to the agoge, a state-run training system. There was no place for weakness or compassion. The children lived under harsh conditions and endured severe trials. They were given minimal food to teach them survival skills and were encouraged to steal, but punished if caught, fostering cunning and resourcefulness. Physical training was a top priority. Young Spartans engaged in daily exercises including wrestling, running, spear throwing, and other forms of military preparation. They were trained to endure pain, cold, and hunger, shaping them into warriors capable of withstanding any hardship. However, the agoge cultivated not only physical strength, but also mental resilience. Boys were taught to be brief and precise in their speech, hence the term laconic response, as Laconia was the region where Sparta was located. They had to express themselves concisely, but effectively. By the age of 20, Spartans completed their training and joined the army, fully prepared to dedicate their lives to defending their homeland. The agoge made Spartans some of the most feared and disciplined warriors in history. Weapons and armor of the Spartans. The Spartans were not just warriors, they were living war machines. Their equipment was meticulously designed for maximum effectiveness in combat. Their armor protected them from deadly blows, while their weapons allowed for precise and powerful attacks. Unlike other Greek warriors, the Spartans avoided unnecessary gear. Everything in their equipment served one purpose: victory. The primary weapon of a Spartan warrior was the dory, a spear about 2.5 meters long. It had an iron tip and a bronze spike at the opposite end. If the spear broke, the Spartan could continue fighting by using the other end as an improvised weapon. In close combat, they wielded the guaifos, a short sword about 40 centimeters long. Its small size allowed Spartans to maneuver easily and strike with precision, especially in the tight formations of the phalanx. In some cases, they used the machaira, a curved sword designed for powerful cutting strikes, capable of slicing through even heavy armor. One of the most important pieces of equipment was the hoplon, a round shield about 90 centimeters in diameter. It was made of a wooden core covered with bronze and weighed around 8 kilograms. Spartans used it not only for defense, but also for offense, knocking enemies off balance. The shield was a symbol of a warrior, and losing it was considered a disgrace. This is why Spartan mothers told their sons, "With your shield or on it," meaning they should return either as victors or as fallen heroes. For armor, warriors initially wore a bronze cuirass, but later replaced it with the linothorax, a lighter yet durable armor made from layers of linen hardened with resin. This provided greater mobility without sacrificing much protection. The Corinthian helmet, covering the entire head, offered excellent defense, but limited vision. Over time, Spartans adopted more open helmet designs for better awareness in battle. Their legs were protected by greaves, bronze shin guards that fit snugly without the need for straps. Spartan equipment reflected their philosophy: simplicity, reliability, and maximum efficiency. They carried no unnecessary weight because they knew that victory in battle depended not on appearance, but on skill and discipline. This made them some of the most formidable warriors of the ancient world.